and welcome back to another episode of the Freelancers Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy whilst you're having a cuppa. I was recently having a chat with Jo, who is Jo Shock, my wonderful right-hand woman who keeps all the cogs turning behind the scenes of the freelance lifestyle. She does all of the attention to detail bits and all the anything technical, even though I am an absolute tech head and I love a lot of things. Anything like workflows where you need to be very, very strong with your eye for detail, things like that, Jo does it. Jo and I have been working together for, we think, a decade now. I think we started working together when I was pregnant with my son, Oscar. I've had him since then. She's had 2 children. We've had lockdowns. We've had all sorts that we've been through together. And I couldn't run the business without her. She's amazing. But the reason I'm talking about this is because I wanted to share a bit of the process of how my newsletters happen. So one of the reasons I brought Jo on board was to do the newsletters. I needed the newsletters to be consistent. I love writing them, but the element of, or the process of checking them and scheduling them is where it was always my downfall. So I'd write all of these newsletters and then they'd never actually get around to going out. And so Jo came on board and we were using MailChimp at the time, which was a bit clunky, but it was free. Then they changed over their processes and I was like, well, if I'm going to pay, I may as well pay for something that allows me to have multiple sign-up pages for different freebies, really good welcome sequences. I'm aware MailChimp has some of these now, but I just felt like it was ready to take the next step up. So Jo moved us to ConvertKit, which is now Kit, but I still call it ConvertKit. I still call Starburst, Opal Fruits. So something she just never let go of. So that was a tangent. We moved from MailChimp to ConvertKit, and the systems were so much better there, and it was so much easier to fit everything in. And then when we just started out, I think I would email her what I wanted to send. I don't think that lasted long. I think we ended up moving to a Google Doc, and that Google Doc had a basic template, which every week I would just update that template with what needs to go out. So the newsletter then just went out on Fridays. So usually I had to get it done by sort of Thursday morning. Jo would take it, she'd do all her magic, and it would all get done, it would get sent. And it worked really well. That has pretty much been a similar process for the last 10 years, and it's worked really well. There have been tweaks, so I now put all of the drafts in Notion for a few different reasons. One, I can have it in calendar view, so we can see easily which newsletters for when. I tend to batch now, so I tend to do all of my newsletters for the following month in like an afternoon. I also do the same for the podcast. So right now I'm recording all of April's podcasts in March, partly because it's easier in terms of passing them to my editor, but partly because April at the moment is looking like a long, long Easter holiday from school, and I'm not going to get a lot of work done. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so that was one of the reasons we moved to Notion. And also it means that I can have the newsletters in there. The newsletters form the base of everything in my business. So I usually come up with the newsletter ideas. That usually spawns the ideas for the podcast each week. I then record the podcast. The podcast gets transcribed. It then turns into a blog post. I usually use some of that for the newsletter and then add everything else that I want to add. And that usually also inspires a social media post. So it really does, planning it out like that makes it much easier for me to work out what's going out that week. And writing them in Notion is just much easier now to do than Google Drive. Google Drive worked so brilliantly for a long time. And then I think I'm trying to think how long we've had the Monday one going. Probably about 5 or 6 years we've had the Monday email going out. So if you aren't a subscriber, Friday tends to be a more meatier topic. I mean, it's usually based on the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, it goes into more depth of that. Monday's the to-do list, the freelancers to-do list. So on Mondays, I share 3 things that people can try to find clients for admin purposes and for work-life balance or self-care. And I did that like I was writing them up for maybe 2 or 3 years. And we got to a point where Joe had put all of those different tips into a long table. And it now means that actually on Mondays, Joe does all of the newsletter. I don't know if that's a bit of a spoiler. We will have like little discussions if there's something that needs to be added in, or I might want to add something extra. But generally, Joe deals with the Monday emails because a lot of it is things that we've touched on before, like National Awareness Days for if you're promoting something, and also reminders like Q1 goals or accounts time is coming up, things like that. So all those things on the to-do list are actually based on things that we've done in the past. Joe might put the odd new thing in, but actually, generally, they are from 2 or 3 years of content previously. So that works really well. It still feels personal, and it is personal because I will still add in bits and Joe will add in bits. But a lot of it is repurposed content that is still useful and relevant to people. So yeah, we went from 1 newsletter to 2 newsletters a week. It works well. The Monday one in particular gets a really high open rate because it's nice and short, and also really practical, and I get a lot of responses based on that. Whereas the Friday one tends to get longer, more thoughtful responses. But from my end, basically what I do is I once a month decide what I'm going to cover that month for each of the weeks. And then I record the podcasts, and then I write the newsletters, and then Joe does all the magic. And that's how it works for us. That's how I've been able to be consistent for so long. And yeah, it works. And I love writing that newsletter on a Friday. And I love that the Monday one helps so many people. And it's all based on things that I've done in the past anyway. But I'm just giving you a bit of a behind the scenes spoiler that I'm not always writing those Monday ones, or I'm not writing fresh content for them that often. So if you find you're wanting to do something like that, if you can find a way to repurpose old content, go for it. Because actually, this is very much a tangent, but sometimes the content that we put out there won't resonate with somebody at one point, but it might be 6 months later. So to give you an example, Talia, one of the members of my membership, she's a money coach, and she wrote something about pensions. And because I'm more interested in it at the moment, because I'm researching it, she posted it about a year ago. She wrote about it in the newsletter a year ago. And it wasn't really chiming with me then because I wasn't looking at pensions. But then when she did it again recently, I was like, okay, that's a perfect time for me to be reading this. So the benefit of repurposing your content is that you're going to meet people where they are. And for some people, it's going to be the perfect timing. Some other people, it'll be brand new information for them. Right. Should we come back from that tangent? Basically, I just wanted to share a bit about the newsletter, but I just wanted to say basically that if you are thinking of starting to outsource something and you want consistency, your newsletter is a really good place to start. From doing that with Joe, we built up, and Joe does so many different things now. She deals with a lot of the Podia things, the ConvertKit, a lot of the processes behind the scenes. She's the eye for detail behind all of that. And that's enabled me to then, on that foundation, mean that I now have a podcast editor, and I have someone that, Laura, who deals with all of the reels with me, and we go and batch our reels once a month. There's a lot of batching that goes on, and there's some outsourcing, and that means that I can be consistent in a way that I might not be able to do if I was on my own. Actually, I definitely wouldn't be able to do on my own. But it can start with just one thing, like 1 newsletter a week. So if you are thinking about outsourcing to a VA or someone like that, or an OBM, I highly recommend that as a starting point. If you've got any questions about newsletters or anything like that, do let me know. And this is my last one of April that I'm batching. So if you have anything you'd like me to cover in May, do let me know. Come on over to the Facebook group, the Freelance Lifestylers, or the Discord, the Freelance Lifestylers over there. You'll find both links in the show notes. I love to answer any of your questions and anything like that. So I'd be more than happy to hear any topic suggestions. Right, that's it for this week. I will speak to you next week. Have a wonderful freelance week.